I'm sitting on the floor of my living room as I tell this story, my back resting against the couch, my knees pulled close to my chest. The house quiet in that way it only gets when the world outside has moved on without you. And for a long time I didn't think I would ever say these words out loud. Because admitting the truth means admitting that I made a choice, not a mistake. Not an accident, but a deliberate decision, and I have spent years pretending it was fate. Pretending it was practical, pretending it was the only option I had. But the truth is much simpler and much harder to live with. I married for security, not love, and I paid the price for it in ways no one warned me about. My name is Lisa Carter. I'm 25 years old. And from the outside, my life probably looks like something people envy. I live in a clean, quiet suburban home. I don't worry about rent. My bills are paid on time. There's food in the fridge, a reliable car in the driveway, and a wedding ring on my finger that sparkles just enough to convince strangers that I'm happy. If you saw me at the grocery store, you'd see a young American woman with soft brown hair, clear skin, careful makeup, the kind of face people assume belongs to someone whose life worked out. But what you wouldn't see is how lonely this house feels when the door closes. You wouldn't see how often I sit in silence, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, wondering how a life that looks so stable can feel so empty. And you wouldn't see the nights when I lie awake next to a man who is technically my husband but feels like a stranger, staring at the ceiling and thinking, this is the cost of choosing safety over love. I didn't always believe in security over love. When I was younger, I believed in passion. In late-night phone calls, in the kind of love that made your chest feel too small for your heart. I believed in growing together, in struggling together, in building something real from nothing. I believed love was enough. But belief is a luxury when you grow up afraid. I grew up in a home where stability was never guaranteed. My parents loved me, but love didn't keep the lights on when the bills piled up. Love didn't stop the arguments about money. Love didn't make the anxiety disappear when eviction notices showed up taped to our door. I learned early that romance doesn't pay rent, and dreams don't fix broken cars. By the time I was in college, I was already tired of uncertainty, tired of counting pennies, tired of feeling like one bad month could ruin everything. I watched friends fall in love with men who had ambition but no plan, passion but no direction, and I watched those relationships burn bright and collapse just as fast. So when Daniel came into my life, he felt like relief. Daniel was older, 32 when I met him. He had a steady job in finance, a clean apartment, a calm voice. He didn't make my heart race, but he made me feel safe. He talked about retirement accounts and health insurance like they were love languages. He paid for dinner without hesitation. He never raised his voice. When he proposed, he said, "I'll always take care of you." And I said yes. Not because I felt fireworks. Not because I couldn't imagine life without him. But because I couldn't imagine struggling ever again. People warned me, gently. My best friend asked, "Do you love him?" My mother asked, "Are you sure this is what you want?" But everyone also said the same comforting thing afterward, love grows. Security matters. Passion fades anyway. I told myself the same lies. I told myself love was overrated. I told myself butterflies were childish. I told myself that stability was the real goal, and emotions were just decoration. Our wedding was beautiful. White dress. Soft music. Smiling guests. I remember looking at Daniel at the altar and thinking, this is a good man. And he was. He still is. But goodness isn't the same as connection. Marriage, I learned, magnifies whatever you ignore. In the beginning, everything was polite. We were kind to each other. We were considerate. We did all the right things. But something was missing. And it showed up in the quiet moments, the pauses in conversation, the way we didn't reach for each other instinctively, the way affection felt scheduled instead of natural. He would come home and ask about my day, and I would answer, and that would be it. No laughter that lingered. No shared excitement. No feeling of being seen. I started to feel like I was performing the role of a wife instead of being one. The house became beautiful but empty. Dinners became routine. Weekends became predictable. And slowly, without realizing it, I began to grieve a life I had never lived. I grieved the love I turned down. I grieved the version of myself who once believed she deserved both security and passion. The worst part wasn't that Daniel was unkind. The worst part was that he didn't notice my loneliness, or maybe he did, and didn't know what to do with it. We never fought loudly. We didn't scream or throw things. Our marriage died quietly, inch by inch, in silence. I started crying in the shower so no one would hear. I started lingering at work longer than necessary just to avoid going home. I started looking at couples in coffee shops and wondering what it felt like to be chosen for love instead of convenience. One night, sitting at the dining table, I realized I had never told my husband my deepest fears. And he had never asked. That's when it hit me. Security can protect your body, but it can starve your soul. I don't blame Daniel. He gave me exactly what he promised. A stable life. A safe future. A dependable partner. What he couldn't give me was what I never demanded: emotional intimacy. Passion, the feeling of being known. And what hurts the most is knowing that I agreed to this arrangement. I traded uncertainty for comfort. And comfort slowly became a cage. There are moments now when I look at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognize myself. I see a young woman who should feel full of possibility, but instead feels like she settled too early, before she understood the cost. I wonder what my life would have been like if I had chosen differently. If I had risked struggle for love. If I had believed I could build security without sacrificing my heart. Sometimes Daniel notices my distance and asks, "Are you okay?" And I say yes. Because how do you explain regret to someone who did nothing wrong? How do you tell a good man that being good wasn't enough? I've learned something no one teaches you when you're young. Safety without love can feel lonelier than being alone. Because at least when you're alone, you're honest. Now, as I sit here in this quiet house, I don't know what my future holds. I don't know if I'll stay or leave. I don't know if love can be learned or if some choices echo forever. But I do know this: if you are listening to my story, if you are standing at the edge of a decision between comfort and connection, please understand this. Security can build a life. Love gives that life meaning. And if you sacrifice your heart to protect yourself from fear, one day you may wake up safe, stable, and deeply, painfully empty, wondering when you stopped choosing yourself. I married for security, not love. And every quiet night in this house reminds me of the price I paid.